Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Larry, again with International Dispute Management. Today I want to talk more about the subject of power dynamics, not only in mediation, also in our daily lives. I'm going to just sit here on the trail and just let you kind of observe nature in Fowler Park here. And maybe we'll see some deer if we're quiet. We'll see what happens. But we're going to do this in a series of videos, and this is going to be the first one, part one. And you know, I've posted other videos on power, and I talked about power and chaos, and so I want to go on and talk about different situations that as a mediator you'll come across positions, because people position themselves in a position of power. And so we talk a lot about positioning, and you may want to view them, and please like the videos if you do like the find that it's informative, and of course subscribe. That's always good, but I think it's more important to just like them so I know what's in there. So I've stated numerous times in most of my videos that power is a currency of a dispute. And that really, if you stop and you think about that, that has a lot to do with the way that people and corporations position themselves. Power is also the way that we position ourselves in our daily lives. And it allows us to advance or maintain our standard of living. And and corporations are no different. They're trying to do the same thing. Most of the time, we think of currency as the source of power, and that's it's a monetary currency, and how you spend that currency is really, it says a lot about you, but it also says a lot about society. But is money and wealth a sustainable source of power? And I will answer that with a great big depends. It depends on how you spend it. It depends on how you obtain it. And I say that because, as we all know, I put you on a trail so you could hear the jets go over. No, sorry about that. I say it depends because it really depends on how you position yourself and what the buying power is behind money. And is it always dependable? So markets change, so do people, so do your need at the time, how you're spending your currency. In mediation, the mediators need to construct an environment where the disputants can discuss their issues in a process we call storytelling. Now, storytelling is where they're going to position themselves. They're going to tell you their side of the story. Each of the disputants will do that. And then your job is to, and I already did one video on objective criteria, is try to, through a facilitation process, pick out the key points and try to compare those with each party. And so when you get the two parties together, you can evaluate those, and they can evaluate them themselves and come to a conclusion. Of course, this sounds easy, but, well, it really isn't. It's very difficult, because a lot of the, issues have been around for a long time. They've bought into this, so it's hard. Many disputants, and in our daily life, we consist of legal, social, scientific, political, and religious issues that cannot be easily defined. And to resolve these in a court setting, the court can only give you a monetary settlement. They cannot put you back whole if you lose a limb, or you lose something that's just not replaceable. They can only give you money to resolve that. So the mediator needs to define these issues in a way that creates objective criteria for each party. And then, like I said, when we're brought together, we'll discuss those. But there's a lot of things that, happen before that. So next, the mediators need to connect these issues and provide a type of roadmap, which I refer to as mapping the nexus, how these things are connected. And then note that each party should have in advance agreed that these are actual issues and they're not something that kind of foreshadows it. And so what you'll find is there are extenuating circumstances on a lot of these issues. There's other reasons why people think that these are important. You need to kind of just, it's called, just removing the chaff from the wheat, Note that each party should have this agreement in a place, and you don't have to necessarily sign that agreement, but just, give them kind of a roadmap on how you want the process to work, and then just keep them on the path. So a lot of times they're going to add on these additional items. I call them riders, and because they just kind of like ride along. They're not really what the dispute is about, but during an argument you said something to somebody and they got really upset about that. So they're gonna write, so they want an apology for that. So, and I'll get into the whole thing about apologies at a later date. These writers, they're just right along. During the construction of the nexus mapping, the medium must pay attention to the power dynamics, and that's really where the heart of this video is. Again, this is, how they're going to position themselves. This is how they're going to spend their currency, and what they feel, which may or may not be true, but they feel that this gives them power, and they want to win. And we're a very competitive society, and all humans are competitive to more or lesser end, depending on your social norms, but because they want to get the best result out of this, which is going to benefit them. And so you've got to make it to where you can, show them that what benefits one party benefits the other party, and that's where we talk about objective criteria. So some of the ways that people or disputants will position themselves is in a formal authority, using laws and regulations. Informal, in the form of knowledge, such as knowledge about the other side's financial situation, knowledge about scientific or trade processes, market forces, or other economic issues, which, they can exploit or use to their benefit. And then of course we got power by association. Power by association is probably going to be a separate video by itself, because this is how you kind of level the playing field when you're with an underdog disputant and you're working with someone that has much more power, financial, a large corporation, the government, so on, so forth. So what power by association, trade unions, government entities, large financial backings, mega international corporations, as well as some NGOs with political clout. When facing a larger or more powerful rival, many times mediation texts will tell you to find an ally. They'll talk about finding an ally or a group with the same goal as you. So in environmental issues, I usually go to like Pheasants Forever, Fish and Wildlife, Nature Conservancy, those types of groups. Southern Environmental Law Center is always a good one to go to kind of, level out the power. So, and because, these groups, environmental groups, they're going to find the power of natural resources. And in my book, Resource-Based Dispute Management, that's really what I focus on, because natural resources have a more sustainable form of power, because they're going to be there for a long time. Where, like I said, markets change, money there now, it may not be there later. So that's very important to talk about. Okay, so we're currently living a type of global economy that focuses on money as a means of wealth, to create wealth. So it kind of builds on itself. It's really interesting. So, and like I said before, our court systems can only provide monetary relief. They cannot make you whole again. They cannot solve the scars put upon natural resources. And so restoration, mitigation, restoration are usually what you're going to try to get. And you have to, in an environmental setting, you have to provide some kind of incentives. And we'll go on, and I go into it quite a bit when we're talking about our mining and stuff. So, in my graduate studies, I took a class from a very wise gentleman called Bernie Mayer. In his book, Beyond Neutrality, Bernie speaks to our beliefs as mediators, which I agree mostly with everything that Bernie says. And maybe if we're lucky, we'll get Bernie to do an interview and talk about some of these. So here are, there's about 10 of these things that Bernie talks about in his book, Beyond Neutrality, that get in the way. They actually get in our way. That, when we talk about, we're neutral third-party conflict resolvers. My work with the federal government, we actually called ourselves federal shared neutrals. But are you truly neutral? You're working for the government. It's just like ombuds are not necessarily neutral. They're working for a court, they're working for a corporation, and, they need to provide solutions for those corporations or the government, and a lot of it's contractual. So, are we really neutral third parties? Number two is competition is bad, cooperation is good. Competition is a good thing as long as it doesn't go too far, and cooperation is the same. So we're really trying to seek a balance in what we do, and I don't think either one's bad. There was a psychology book that was out in my freshman year of college. It was I'm Okay, You're Okay, and I don't remember the author, but that's pretty much where we're at when we talk about this. It's like I'm okay, you're okay. One thing's not better than the other. So, and then we talk about number three is our goal is a win-win solution. Bernie calls us a trap. And in my experience, it can be. So you really have to evaluate what is a win, So if you go into mediation thinking you have to give something up, and then the process is already hindered, so don't go into a process thinking I'm going to have to give something up. Stick to your guns, try to come up with solutions that do benefit each other, but you don't have to give something up to get a win-win solution. And I'll tell you right now that you don't always have to, and there's not always a need to resolve the issue by surrendering to the opposition, and you don't have to solve the issue right off the bat when you start mediation. The first thing when I'm working with large corporations or with government entities, the first question I ask each party, do you have the ability to resolve the issue today? And generally the answer is going to be no. Why? Because they work by committee. They're going to have to come up with a solution, take it back, and it's going to have to get approved by their committee, whether it's in the government, upper management, or whatever. So, just be aware of that. So you may not be able to solve it that day, and it may take longer than you think. So this is also another way of positioning yourself that, we'll come up with a solution, and then all of a sudden it wasn't accepted. So it plays a major role in the mediation process. Interests are in, this is number 4, interests are in, positions are out. You know, Fisher and Urey in 1981 book, Getting to Yes, stresses the distinction between interest and position. And if you haven't read that book, you need to go read it. I also speak to this in my book, Resource Dispute Management. You know, what is your interest? What truly is your interest? Is it monetary? Is it long-term? Is it short-term? So you need to define what your interest is and how you're going to benefit in not only in the short run, but in the long run. So number 5 is constructive communications is more important than passionate advocacy. Yeah, that's a difficult one because you're going to have to expect both parties to be very passionate about, and they're going to advocate for their own side. And you're going to have to do constructive communication just to get your foot in the door with some of these people. It's really difficult. We may have to save this one for another video. So with respect to just constructive communications, people do it in different ways. When you're working with international groups, they have different social structure. So we'll probably talk about that a little bit later in a different perspective. Number 6, respect trumps anger. I think I'm going to take the last 5 of these and leave them for future and separate videos. And I'm trying to get, like I said, a interview with Bernie Mayer, and we'll let Bernie answer some of these last ones. And number 7 is facilitative mediation means minimal substantive influence. That couldn't be further from the truth. Good relationships are out. Goals, adversaries are our problem. Again, it depends on if you're working with merchants and they want to keep working together, governments that want to keep working together. The first thing when you're talking about good relationships, is the dispute even ripe? One of the ultimate dispute is war. And, we've got a lot of wars going on right now with Gaza and Ukraine and stuff. And the parties are not, the issues are not ripe. Trying to negotiate a settlement when the parties are not willing to, that's the problem. Number 9, we offer a level playing field. That is just a total fallacy. We try to get a level playing field, but in reality, it depends on how people position themselves, and it's not as easy as it sounds. Number 10 is conflict resolution is a process. Now, I refer to conflict resolution as a systematic process. We will get Bernie's, and we can get an interview with Bernie Mayer. We'll get his perspective on that in more detail. So this is all I have today, and there's a lot of good things in Bernie's books that we could talk about. That's all I have today, and if you want to hear more, please subscribe and like the channel. And if you have any constructive comments, please put them below. Thank you for your time, and remember, the only thing constant is change.